Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Access Granted. I'm your host, Grant Chachere. I'm the owner of Rougarou Sports Media, as well as a beat writer for Crescent City Sports. I'm joined here today by Creg Stephenson of AL.com. He's the lead beat writer for South Alabama and Troy, but we're only talking about South Alabama today because this weekend they'll be traveling to Tiger Stadium to play the LSU Fighting Tigers. Creg, man, how's the football season going for you? I know it's been pretty busy.
Yeah, pretty good. Thanks for having me on, Grant. Looking forward to talking to you.
Yeah, no problem. And first things first, I want to ask about the head coach, Major Applewhite. Major Applewhite is a Baton Rouge native. He went to Catholic High, and he's a big Baton Rouge guy all around. What's his week been like? Just knowing that he's going to go back home for the first time in his career.
He's a pretty low key guy, so he's trying to downplay it. Like a lot of coaches do. It's interesting though, like you said, he's from Baton Rouge. I guess I think he moved there in middle school. His family's originally from Bogalusa, so obviously he's got Louisiana ties. But he did not grow up an LSU fan. He grew up an Alabama fan.
Wow.
His dad named him after Major Ogilvy, who was a star at Alabama in the 70s.
Okay.
I think they're from the same town as Terry Davis, who played at Alabama in the 70s. So that maybe is the connection. So he spent a lot of time at Tiger Stadium going to games. I think maybe some camps and 7-on-7 and that sort of thing. But it's not like he's going to play his childhood team. But there's definitely some ties there. Obviously, all his high school friends are LSU fans and all that kind of stuff. So he's not going to admit it, but I know it probably means a lot to him to coach in this game.
And let's talk about the team that he coaches, the Jaguars. Lost his first two games of the year to North Texas 52-38, and then to Ohio 27-20. However, their last two games they've won by an average of 55.5 points, given their 87-10 win over Northwestern State, and then their 48-14 win on the road at Appalachian State. So what has changed just in the last two games?
Yeah, well, the first game against North Texas, they really just had a terrible day on defense. It was one of those games where it's like the last team to get the ball is going to win, and they had a couple of 3-and-outs on offense, kind of got them behind the 8 ball a little bit, and they just got outscored. The Ohio game is a little different because Gio Lopez, their starting quarterback, was out for that game with turf toe. I think if he plays, they probably win that one. So, and then Northwestern State, which I know people over there probably a little familiar with them, but they had a situation last year where one of their players died late in the year and they canceled the season. And so just about anybody, that was any good transferred out of the program. So they're almost like an upstart or, what do you call it? A first year program almost.
Yeah.
But so they just weren't very good. But the win at Appalachian State really kind of opened some eyes. Appalachian State was supposed to be the Sun Belt champion, front runner this year, but South really took it to them. I mean, they both offensively and defensively. They've been good offensively all year, especially with Lopez in there. But defense, I think, has kind of taken a step forward. They had a lot of young guys. They lost 8 starters, and then another starter, one of their starting cornerbacks, has been out for the year with a bad back. So it really was some learning on the job. But to their credit, they have been coached up and are playing a little bit better now.
Mm-hmm. And speaking of Gio Lopez, he's pretty much the glue that keeps his offense together. This offense is 13th in total offense, average over 500 yards. They're 9th in scoring, of course. What difficulties will we bring to this LSU defense? Because we've already seen them struggle against a dual-threat quarterback when they went to South Carolina against Lenora Sellers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's quite good. I mean, he's a lefty. He's built more like a running back than a quarterback. He's right at 6 feet tall, about 200 pounds, so really thick, powerful runner, but has a good arm too. He has a tendency to sail the ball sometimes, throwing the ball down the field, but makes quick decisions, gets rid of the ball quick, and when he tucks it and runs, he's hard to bring down, and he's fast. So, he is a very good dual threat G5 quarterback, the kind of quarterback they haven't had here in the past. They had Carter Bradley, who's now with the Las Vegas Raiders. He's the third string quarterback, but he was just a pocket guy. This is a guy that can get outside the pocket and make things happen. And obviously, if you're not assignment sound on defense, he can burn you for sure.
Also, no interceptions on the season as well.
What's that?
No interceptions on the season.
No interceptions. Yeah, absolutely. No interceptions. So he's made good decisions for the most part. He has had a couple There was one, especially last week, where it probably should have been picked off and the guy dropped it. But for the most part, you're right. He takes care of the football for sure.
And they have two really good running backs. Bothwell, 37 carries for 359 yards and 6 touchdowns, which are both lead the Sunbelt Conference. And, of course, Ketchel Bullock, who's also a solid running back as well, 218 yards and 3 touchdowns. So what do these what are these two running backs different? Are they similar? Like, what do they bring to the table for the Jaguars?
Yeah, they're a little bit different. But Bullock is a guy that played quite a bit last year. He was an Ole Miss transfer, and he's kind of a slasher. Pretty good coming out of the backfield catching the ball, but really kind of a one-cut runner. Whereas Bothwell is a real power guy, 6 foot, 220 pounds, and he's a true freshman. And he's the kind of guy that if you're South Alabama, you're probably going to be hoping you can hold on to him because he really is. I think he's an SEC talent. He's tough and strong, and he had some injuries in high school, and that maybe affected his ability to get onto the camp circuit a little bit more than he might have. And so South Alabama was fortunate to sign him. But he's been a real difference maker. There's no question about it. I mean, he maybe the best running back in the Sun Belt. He's a freshman.
Oh, wow, yeah. So, I mean, yeah, and that's even more impressive that he's a true freshman and he's already leading, a pretty solid group of 5 conference in Sunbelt. So, and what kind of challenges does he, what kind of, and since Bothwell, what kind of challenges does he bring to LSU's defense that is still, they're improving in the run defense, but, there's still some holes that they need to fix.
Yeah, for sure. And like I said, he's big and strong and powerful. And if you can't, it takes multiple guys to tackle him. You got to gang tackle the guy. And he's impressive. Is he going to run for 200 yards against LSU? I kind of doubt that, but he's a good player. There's no question about it. He's one of the best they've ever had here, for sure.
And the receivers, you got 3 really good receivers: Jamal Pritchett, Devin Bozan, and Jeremiah Webb. What challenges will they bring to LSU's defensive backfield? That has really, that's probably been the weakest part of LSU's defense, but especially at safety.
Yeah, Pritchett is he's a really good story. He was a walk-on, actually. He played at Tuskegee for a year and then transferred here. He's 5'8", maybe, about 170 pounds, maybe. So he's one of those little water bug guys, but he can get down the field and catch the ball. Boyson was their leading receiver 2 years ago. He hurt his knee last year, so he has just come back from torn ACL. He's the possession guy. He's the one that's going to get in the slot and catch the ball over the middle and in the perimeter and all that sort of thing. And then Webb's another guy. He was a transfer from South Dakota. Had a big, actually, in the South Dakota State game a couple of years ago. He caught a Hail Mary for the game-winning touchdown. And he's another one. He can get down the field. He's really kind of come on. They're solid offensively, across the board. Tight end, even DJ Thomas Jones is the guy that scored, I think, 4 touchdowns this year. He's a playmaker as well. So offensively, I think they will be able to make some plays and put some points on the board. And I'm sure we'll talk about it. The question mark is, will they be able to stop LSU's offense?
Right. And I'm glad you mentioned DJ Thomas Jones, but he's only had 6 catches for 52 yards, but 3 of those catches have been touchdowns, and all 3 of those touchdowns were in the red zone. Is he just more used as a kind of a red zone type of threat type of guy, or can he also, be a threat even when he's not in the red zone?
Yeah, he can get down the field, but mainly that's what they use him. And they're tight ends in general in this offense. It's they're going to try to get it out to him quick on the perimeter, or like you said, in the red zone. The touchdown he scored last week against App State was a pop pass where he just they play actioned and he was wide open in the back of the end zone, and that's kind of how they're going to use him. They really will work if they're going to throw it down the field. It's going to be to one of the 3 receivers more than likely.
Mm-hmm. And the offensive line, I know you have 2 returning starters and Reed Buys. He appeared in 12 games last year, 9 starts, and he returns at right guard. And then you also returned left tackle Jordan Davis, who he started every game this season, but also appeared in 11 games last year and 9 starts. how does this offensive line fare against a pretty solid LSU defensive line that's improved it's improved in every single game they played, but then also it's really good with the pass rush.
They've gotten a lot better at the South Alabama offensive line, not only this year, but since last year. They got a new offensive line coach this year, Jason Onyebuaga. He is a Sam Pittman protege, and Sam Pittman, before he was head coach at Arkansas, was regarded as one of the best offensive line coaches in the country. So he's one of his guys. He's really brought a new attitude to this team. They've got 3 transfers. Poise, you mentioned, as a Mississippi State transfer. He was here last year. Jordan Davis, a South Carolina transfer, who was here last year. And then the center, guy from Warren Easton High School right there in New Orleans, Malachi Preciado from Purdue, has come in. He came in right after the regular season end, actually, when they were still preparing for the bowl game last year, and he has been the number 1 center, since they started spring practice. So he's been a big addition. The other 2 guys are holdovers. Malachi Carney. It's interesting they have 2 Malachis on their offensive line, and then the left guard is Kenton Gerardo, who is a guy that has just kind of come up through the program. Was a center at one time, but they moved to guard. So they're solid. I mean, they're no real liabilities, I would say, on the offensive line. Pretty solid run game. And when you've got a quarterback that can evade the rush the way Gio Lopez does, they haven't had really any major issues in protection either.
Mm-hmm. And I know you have really. I'm not sure how much you know about LSU's defense so far, but what do you think that South Alabama's offense can give LSU the most problems?
Yeah, I think it's got to be. I think they're going to try to run the ball. Now, can you do that against an athletic SEC front? I don't know. But I do think it's going to come down to Gio Lopez being able to make plays both with his arms and his legs, and getting the ball in Jamal Pritchett's hands and getting the ball in Fluff Bothwell's hands. And, they're not going to be able to just load up and whip LSU at the line of scrimmage the way they did App State last week. But, I think they'll have a good plan. Again, offensively, I think they'll hold their own, in this game.
Mm-hmm. And I have to mention too, because I actually just found this out a couple of days ago, but you guys' office coordinator, Rob Ezel, he was actually the guy that did the Saban, all the Saban mimicking back in Alabama.
Right.
What's his personality like since he's been with the program, and then also, how has he changed the offense overall?
Yeah. You're right. Yeah, he's the famous Nick Saban impersonator back when he was a walk-on wide receiver at Alabama, 15 years ago or so. And it's funny, he came here as tight ends coach with Kane Wommack, the previous head coach. And the first time I ever talked to him, I said, "Look, I'm going to ask you about the Saban thing one time, and then we'll get it out of the way, and then we won't have to ask about it again," because it gets brought up to him constantly. But he's a good guy, real country guy. He's from North Alabama. He's a coach's son. His dad and his grandfather actually were high school coaches. So really, just immersed in football. And obviously he was around Nick Saban forever. He came with Major Applewhite when Major came down to be offensive coordinator. So the offense, in terms of continuity, has been very similar. They're not doing a whole lot different. It's still Major Applewhite's offense to a degree, but Ezel, I thought he called a really good game against App State. It seemed like everything, they caught App State off guard. They were able to exploit App State's weaknesses. So it seems like, really good offensive mind in a young coach. I think Rob's about in his mid-30s now. So really a solid guy.
Mm-hmm. And now let's move on to defense a little bit. I know the offense kind of overshadows the defense of South Alabama's team. But I have to ask you about the defensive line. What challenges will the defensive line bring to this LSU offensive line?
Yeah, this LSU offensive line, obviously, is one of the stronger ones in the country. They've got, 2 guys that I don't have to tell you that are been starting since they were freshmen, that are future NFL players. But I do think that South Alabama's D-line is the strength of their program, at least on the defensive side. Wakevius Thomas, who is the nose tackle, they call him Bubba. He has been a 4-year starter. Probably will have a chance to play in the NFL. I know he's high. The Senior Bowl, obviously, is right here in Mobile, and they're kind of high on him and as a potential guy that they could have in their game. Maurice Strong, who is a 7th-year senior. He had 2 medical red shirts, so he's still around. Is a guy that is just a program veteran, and pretty rock solid. They play a 4-2-5, so you'll see a lot of they have a defensive tackle that'll play over the guard, then the nose man, and then the defensive end outside linebackers will play on the perimeter. The one thing that was unproven coming into the season was the defensive end position. Jamie Sheriff, who's now with the Seattle Seahawks, was the kind of a 3-year guy that was really, really solid. They're playing a couple of redshirt freshmen, Tyler Thomas and Jordan Norman, and those guys have kind of held their own. But again, if LSU can line up and run the ball, I think they'll probably, if they want to do that, they'll probably be able to do it.
Mm-hmm. And I was actually kind of looking at their stats. They really haven't gone after the quarterback all that much. Only 4 sacks of the year, which is 114th in the country, and also they're 90th in tackles for loss as a team. Is that a worry about this defensive line going into this game against LSU? Just because they, to beat LSU, you have to get after Garrett Nussmeier.
For sure. And, the linebackers for South Alabama were really the worry coming into the year, because they had 4 seniors plus a guy who transferred out to Missouri, Khalil Jacobs. I would say, 4 of their top 6 guys on defense probably were linebackers last year, and those guys are gone. A lot of young guys, and they did a pretty good job of getting to Aguilar, the quarterback for App State last week. They tried to do a little line stunning and that sort of thing. Outside linebacker, they brought in Akil Washington, who is a Liberty transfer, had some productive years up there. But yeah, just in terms of getting to the quarterback and affecting him constantly, they've not done a great job. Not done a great job of that, really for the last couple of years. It's a vision-based defense, so you're going to kind of read the quarterback's eyes and try to find where the ball is going to be there in terms of rather than just kind of pin your ears back and get after the ball. So that can obviously lead to some big plays, but it can you can get burned as well, which we've seen a few times. But yeah, I would say the linebacker more so than defensive line is the thing that they're worried about.
Mm-hmm. And I know linebacker, like you just said, is one of the worries. What are some of the players in that linebacker core that LSU fans need to watch out for?
Yeah, Blaine Myrick, number 32, is a redshirt sophomore. He's kind of the quarterback of the defense now. He was a guy that they wanted to kind of bring along alongside Jacobs this year. Jacobs would be the 1 and Myrick would be the 2, but then Jacobs left. So it's Myrick and then Gavin Forshea, who is a Kansas State transfer, has stepped into the other position. So, they're solid. They have gotten better tackling. They were poor. The biggest problem they had against North Texas was poor tackling, and against Ohio to an extent. They've seemed to have gotten better there. But again, I think if South Alabama's going to have a chance in this one, they're just going to have to score.
Hmm. Oh yeah, and LSU fans, we're kind of used to that, given how the defense was last year, especially the game against Ole Miss, where it just was back and forth.
Right.
But I think hopefully for LSU fans, they don't have to deal with that this Saturday. But especially with that really good offense. But talk to me a little bit about the secondary for South Alabama. Like, what threats do they pose for LSU? Can you also tell us some players that we need to watch out for in the defensive backfield?
Yeah, for sure. Jaden Voisin, who is the free safety, the twin brother of Devin Voisin, is a 3-year starter, probably their best player back there. Pretty good job, good tackler, good job of getting to the ball when it's in the air, breaking up passes and that sort of thing. The rest of the secondary is young and or new. Ricky Fletcher, who was probably their best cornerback coming back, is out for the year. He's got a bad back. So they've had to kind of mix and match there. Amarian Fortenberry, who's a true freshman, has been starting the last couple of weeks. And he had a really nice game against App State. He kind of was a liability early in the year. Jordan Scruggs, who plays the nickel, had a 95-yard interception return against App State last week. Kind of the first big play he's really been involved in. JUCO transfer. But again, they've been kind of feast or famine back there. They will, they make a big play and give up a big play. And, it's just a matter of, man, you hope if there's a receiver wide open that maybe Nussmeier will miss.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And, how have the players reacted? Had any chance to play in the stadium like Tiger Stadium? I know they probably played in some venues in the past, They're pretty cool, but there's nothing like playing in Tiger Stadium, which is one of the more historic stadiums in all college football.
Yeah, no question. There's a couple of guys on the team that are still around, Wakevius Thomas being one that played when they played at Tennessee a few years ago, which is, probably as close maybe to LSU as something that they would have played in. They played at Oklahoma State last year, but that's not really one of the historic venues or anything.
Right.
And then they do have some transfers. Preciado talked about when he was at Purdue, they played at Michigan. So maybe a slightly similar, but we all know Baton Rouge is totally different, especially at night. So it won't be anything. It's like nothing they will have experienced. Defensively, though, they did say that, the benefit is that the fans are usually trying to be quiet when the offense is on the field, their own offenses, as a matter of fact. And I do think the fact that they have the helmet communicators now for the quarterback will help a little bit. You're not constantly trying to hear the play call or whatever it is. But yeah, in terms of it's not something that you experience in the Sun Belt. App State is a pretty good venue for this level, but you're talking 35,000 instead of 102,000. So it's a totally different situation.
Mm-hmm. And I got one last question for you. What's probably going to be your biggest takeaway? Not only going into this game, but after the game for the South Alabama Jaguars.
Yeah, obviously you want to win, but I don't know that that's terribly realistic. They have one win against an SEC team in program history. That was Mississippi State, and Mississippi State had to miss an extra point on the last play of the game for them to win that one. So, I just think you need to come out. You don't want to get embarrassed. They went to Tennessee a couple of years ago and lost 60-14. You don't want something like that to happen, and you don't want anybody to get hurt. Obviously, if Gio Lopez is the key to the season, you don't want him to have a serious injury to where, if he's hurt, your season in terms of contending in the Sun Belt is over. So, it's not. I've heard some G5 coaches say this year we're just going there to get a check. And that is true to an extent, but you want to get a check. You want to come out healthy, and you want to put a representative effort on the field. And, I think that is certainly a possibility for South Alabama this week.
Awesome. Craig, where can people find you? Find your work, find your social media?
Yeah. I am on X at Creg Stephenson. You can see my name on the screen. It's spelled a little different, Creg, C-R-E-G, and then al.com/USA for all the coverage of South Alabama.
Yes, sir. And thanks, Craig, for joining us. Make sure to like this video and subscribe to Rougarou Sports Media. Also, make sure to follow Rougarou Sports Media wherever Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Thanks again, Craig, for hopping on to talk a little about South Alabama football.
All right, Grant. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no problem.